ponder upon, because when you look at the term burden, it denotes something that is heavy, something that is troubling the people who are carrying it. And if burdens do not find solutions to it, they remain burdens. But this year, we're going to have a reminder, as we'll be discussing further, that the burdens that we're facing in the food industry and in the global food chain and in the global supply chain, when it comes to food, these burdens have solutions. As I was getting deeper, the World Health Organization has come up with the FEDG report. This report is carrying statistics, latest up to 2021, of the illnesses and the types and the causes and where they're coming from, country by country, so that they can enable us, the professionals, to alleviate this burden from the governments, from the critical organizations that are assisting, so that we can find the correct solutions to tackle these problems that we are having. So today we have an incredible lineup of experts who are going to be sharing with us information that is critical concerning this. I'm more than excited to be here and having to host these speakers. So, just a brief introduction of our speakers as we get to it. We have three speakers today, and these are people I'm really waiting to hear from, as they're going to be sharing with us nuggets and solutions that are going to enable us to tackle the burdens that we have. I will first introduce Sinao Nzinga, our speaker, and I will read out his biography here, and it's very, very strong and solid, and I'm very inspired to be having to share a podium, so to say, with such industry gurus. So Sina Omzinga is a founding director of Skimpo Agribusiness Solutions, a training and consulting business based in South Africa. He is a well-seasoned food safety expert with a wealth of experience and enormous contribution to the food, agriculture, and pharmaceutical industries in South Africa. He has worked with most food manufacturing giants in South Africa. Through his career as a food auditor and a trainer, he has been fortunate to work with companies beyond the South African borders. So we're talking about international gurus here. He is a qualified food technologist, FSSC 22000 leader, IRCA, ISO 9000 lead auditor, IRCA as well, BRCGS approved certification lead auditor. He is among the very few BRCGS approved training partners in South Africa, which allows him to provide food safety training at a global level. His expertise extends over with being a microbiologist, chemist, technical trainer, quality supervisor, sanitation specialist, supplier quality assurance specialist, quality systems specialist, quality assurance manager, and food safety certification auditor. Ladies and gentlemen, that is one of our speaker, Mr. Sinao Mzinga. If we're in a room, I would say let's give a round of applause, because what a biography. Thank you so much, sir, for such a huge contribution in the food industry. I'll move on to introduce the second speaker so that when they speak, I will not be interrupting them. Our second speaker, I hope I'll be pronouncing this well, is Jacinta Mwende. Jacinta Mwende is the Quality Assurance Senior Departmental Head at the Del Monte in Kenya Limited, formerly the Quality Assurance Manager at Alpha Fine Foods Limited. Her professional career in quality assurance spans over 25 years in diverse sectors in the industry on cereals, pharmaceuticals, packaging material, meat products, canned fruits, and beverage juices. What a dedication to the industry. Over 25 years. She has a wide hands-on experience in execution, training, and implementation of food safety systems. She studied food science and at Technical University of Kenya. In addition, she's a facilitator under John C. Maxwell's Transformational Leadership Program dubbed EQUIP. Jacinta is passionate about food safety, quality, and hygiene, and is quality committed to mentoring and developing young leaders and professionals. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause. I mentioned that we have the gurus in the industry. 25 years, that's a very um, motivating dedication to the industry, and your input today will be most valuable. Our last speaker is going to be Giovanni Marcelli, and I hope I'm pronouncing that as well. Well, he's the founder of Safety Prepped and an experienced food safety, quality assurance, sanitation, and regulatory compliance professional with a diverse background spanning food manufacturing, retail, distribution, hospitality, food service, and public venue operations. He specializes in strengthening food safety systems, improving sanitation practices, ensuring regulatory compliance, and enhancing audit readiness. Throughout his career, Giovanni has conducted thousands of audits, inspections, assessments, and operational reviews, helping organizations identify risks, implement effective corrective actions, and maintain compliance with industry standards and regulatory requirements. His expertise includes HACCP, FSMA preventive controls, sanitation programs, environmental monitoring, supplier management, pest control, recall readiness, and third-party preparation. Throughout Safety Prepped, Through Safety Prepped, he provides practical, field-based solutions that bridge the gap between written food safety programs and daily operational execution. His approach focuses on delivering clear, actionable guidance that improves food safety culture, operational performance, and public health protection. Giovanni holds professional certifications, include Certified Professional of Food Safety, CPFS, Preventive Controls Qualified Individual, PCQI, Hazard Training, and Qualified Applicator License in Pest Control. He is also a certified food safety instructor and examiner proctor with a bachelor's and master's degrees. Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for our third speaker, Mr. Giovanni Marcelli. I
Our
am very
fourth speaker, hi
yes, we have a fourth
Samantha.
speaker. Yes,
Yes, we do have a fourth speaker.
oh, that's
And
amazing.
yes, I'll have the honors to introduce our fourth speaker. Our fourth speaker is coming from all the way from Cameroon. His name is Mr. Achondu Barisel. He is a practical and results-driven food safety and quality professional expert with experience in implementing and managing auditing, food safety management systems, and integrated management systems across most of Africa's most demanding systems. Um, most demanding operational environmental systems, which include in-flight catering in Uganda, a remote mine site in Madagascar, and international hospitality in Cameroon. Barisel is a CQI RCA certified lead audit for FSSC version 6 and ISO 22000 of 2018. He is an OSHA's professional and he holds a master's degree in quality control and management. Barisel has undergone training in global food safety governance through FAO, United Nations in risk assessment within the Codex framework and building of sustainable food systems. What a profile. I'm so excited to listen to the speakers as well. And thank you so much to all the speakers' commitment today. Over to you, Samantha. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Titi, for such an introduction. Like I said, we are so privileged today to have these industry professionals joining us today and helping us to look through all corners of our industry, looking for the solutions of the burdens that we have. Like I had highlighted this year, our theme is from burden to solutions, safe food everywhere. That is what we are advocating for, safe food everywhere. This theme challenges the perception that food safety is merely a regulatory burden or just compliance regulation or a box that needs to be ticked. Instead, it encourages us as professionals, the organizations, and even governments at large and food professionals to view food safety with a different eye. Food safety is not only something we talk about when it just comes to probably just how people can make it to be a trivial issue where they do not see the impact of the lack of food safety within operations. Food professionals, we are tasked with a great burden to alert people on the impact of the lack of food safety. It is our duty to ensure that we continue advocating and propel the message that safe food must be found everywhere. Because at the end of the day, like we always say, food safety is everyone's businesses. It's everyone's business. Um, the discussion then shifts from how do you comply with food safety requirements to how can food safety help us solve real world challenges. Because with this theme that we have, we can clearly see that we have burdens that need solutions, and we need to tackle this in the real world, not just something that is written down, a box that needs to be ticked, something to be discussed on webinars and then shoved under the bed or shoved in cupboards and not taken seriously. There are real world challenges we are facing globally just because of lack of food safety. We have illnesses arising in every corner of the world. The statistics are there. The World Health Organization has shared the statistics. We can go and delve in and see how much of an impact that we are seeing, that we are suffering from the burdens that lack of food safety is putting at our feet. The key message that we need to take away, especially from this year's theme, is that food safety protects lives. We are all here today because we are alive. We are not dead. We are living human beings. And if you remember, when we were starting to learn about science, there were characteristics of living beings, right? We are currently meeting all of those characteristics. And the other characteristics was that a living being eats on something, right? It feeds on something. So that issue of food safety, it protects lives. Food safety protects lives. That's the most key important thing. Even as the World Health Organization is looking at this, we are losing so many lives due to lack of food safety, due to foodborne illnesses, due to everything that is affecting our food supply chain globally. So, yes, the key message number one is that food safety protects lives. Unsafe food causes foodborne illnesses, as I've highlighted, and that affects millions of people globally each year. So, food safety systems that are effective will enable us to prevent contamination and to protect consumers. What I like also about our speakers today is that they span and they cover all corners of the food industry. So definitely the solutions we are going to discuss today are going to answer to every burden that we have. Secondly, food safety builds consumer trust, right? Grateful for the developments that we have covered over the years, and we have systems that as I've been reading out, you've been hearing our speakers, they are certified in different systems, and these are the systems that help build consumer trust. Food safety builds consumer trust. Consumers are increasingly aware of food quality and safety, and businesses that prioritize food safety strengthen their reputation and customer confidence. At the end of the day, I firmly believe that as the food industry professionals, we are the people to lead the whole value chain. And knowing that we have such a task to take care of our consumers, that whatever that they are getting in the stores, in the businesses, in the retails, in the whole FMCG chain that we are running, it is our task to ensure we protect the it's our task that we protect the consumer and build their trust. Number three, the key point I would like us to take as we prepare to get into our speakers is that food safety supports business growth. We have entrepreneurs amongst us from our speakers, and looking at food safety, it supports the business growth. Rather than being a cost center, robust food systems reduce recalls, complaints, product losses, and operational inefficiencies. There is a lot that I could say, but today we are privileged to have our speakers that I'm going to hand over to our first speaker to unpack what it means to have the burdens, but also have the solutions because we want safe food everywhere. Over to our first speaker.
Oh, thank you, Samantha. This is Jacinta here. Uh, welcome all, and thank you very much to be here. I'll request the host kindly give me the rights for sharing the screen. Or you share from your end, please.
Sorry, Jacinta, please come again.
Kindly give me the rights for sharing the screen since it's not allowing, or you assist share the slides for me.
Okay, let me do that quickly. Jacinta, you can try sharing now. It should be fine.
Okay, you can be able to see my screen now.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Welcome to this forum where we look at food safety. This year's theme, it's from burden to solutions. Most of us know actually the burden of food safety, the burden of failure to follow food safety, as the moderator has introduced, it is very important indeed to have safe food everywhere. Just before I start get on the things that we need to discuss on, how many of us ask themselves about the quality or the safety of the food we put on our plate? As here in Kenya, I'll talk, most of us will not ask about the quality of the food that they put on the plate. But this awareness, each and every World Food Safety Day, we enlighten people, or we try to encourage people to be able to check on that. So it is everybody's responsibility. So, okay, I'll do a brief introduction of the same. Oh, sorry. About the World Food Safety Day, this year's theme, led by the WHO, it encourages us under the theme, but from burden to solution, safe food everywhere. It is dedicated to highlight the burden of foodborne diseases and get science-based solutions that can prevent them. So it is our responsibility, each one of us, to be able to look on that. Just a minute, sorry. I'm sorry for that itch. Okay, thank you very much. Sorry for that hitch. I think I would just start it off again. Yeah, let me just start off with the introduction. The theme is led by the WHO under this year's campaign, From Burden to Solutions, Safe Food Everywhere, and it's dedicated to highlight the burden of foodborne illnesses with science-based solutions that can prevent them. The burden of, sorry. From statistics, unsafe food, from the WHO statistics, unsafe food affects or causes 886 million illnesses and 1.5 million deaths annually in young children, being the highest risk. That is WHO statistics for this year. Children aged less than 5 years face almost 3 times the risk of illness from unsafe food than the older adults. This is according to the new estimates released by the WHO. Besides that, when we look at the burden, besides being just 9% of the global population, the young children suffer nearly a third of all the foodborne diseases, especially the diarrheal diseases, which can be deadly for vulnerable age groups. Exposure to chemicals hazards like methyl mercury and lead in foods can harm the developing brains of children and cause long life neurological and developmental problems in children. So this is the burden that we have in food safety that we really need to work to look at. This is the burden continued. We have the vulnerable groups summarized. We have the young children, which are more sensitive to foodborne illnesses. We have the expectant women who are at a higher risk of complications from foodborne illnesses. We have the aged people and the people with immunocompromised persons, people with maybe the sick, the ones who are recovering, and the ones who are immunocompromised. So with this, we'll see having this burden of both foodborne illnesses, we need to come up with solutions as food safety stakeholders, as business owners, in everything that we do, in every aspect of our areas. So food safety diseases are preventable. That is one of the themes that we are driving in this World Food Safety Day. Foodborne diseases are a significant global burden. They cause at least 200 illnesses affecting health, livelihoods, education, and economies, yet they are largely preventable. Actually, when we look at it, we'll find that the cost of food safety is cheaper than the consequences that are caused by lack of food safety or unsafe food. Reliable data on foodborne diseases assists governments, food businesses, individual stakeholders to make informed decisions. Knowing where the high risks are, they allow us to focus on cost-effective interventions and to protect the public health. For instance, if you look at the WHO data, the FDA data, and public health data at different countries, I believe each and every country, they have a sector of public health that handles this, that checks the data, for instance, for outbreaks caused by foodborne diseases. Such data help us to come up with the corrective actions or to come up with ways of improving and ensuring that we have safe food for everyone. Still continuing with the foodborne diseases are presentables. So the question we can ask ourselves is, who is responsible? Who is responsible? Whose responsibility is it? Food safety is a shared responsibility by all stakeholders, from farm to plate, or you can call it from farm to fork. That is for everyone. So we start with the farmer. Good agricultural practices. That is the responsibility of farmer to ensure that good agricultural practices are followed to avoid unsafe food due to issues of chemical residues, pesticides, residues, heavy metals, and the like. So good agricultural practices are part of what we can be enforced. The other bit is the food processors, adherence to GMP and proper labeling, and also HACCP. That is the responsibility of the processor. We have transporters. This helps us to see that it actually cuts across all the sections. The transporters, how am I transporting the food? The farmer has done their bit, the processor has done their bit. As the transporter, how are we transporting the food to ensure food safety? The transportation, the containers that you're using, the mode of transport, all those affect the food safety, and indeed it is preventable. We look at the retailer as business owners, distributors, the food vendors, good warehousing and distribution practices, safe food handling and hygiene practices are very key in ensuring food safety. When we look at the vendors, we have the street food. Does the street food vendor ever ask themselves, is this food safe? We've seen some documentaries where there's some street food vendors, not all, they use some not clean water in washing the utensils or in cooking, which definitely affects the country's productivity in terms of, if the country is sick, most people who are going to eat there are the people who are working, maybe who are working in some informal kind of jobs or manual jobs. If they eat that food, get infected, it also gets back to the economy as much as they get sick. The consumer, it's also the responsibility of the consumer to ensure safe food handling and hygiene practices. In most cases, just like the question I started with, the breakfast we took or anyone took this morning, did we ask ourselves, did we pause and ask whether it is really safe? Or did we just take it in faith that it will be safe? So the other body that is responsible for food safety, it is the governments, the regulatory bodies, this the Codex, WHO, FDA, and many others. So in this case, food safety being preventable, what part are we playing? Each person or each sector needs to ask themselves, as a business person, as I try and do my business as a manufacturer, am I considering the safety of the people? Am I considering the safety of the food that I'm going to send to the people? Among the FDA's top priorities is maintaining access to food that are sources of nutrients while limiting consumer exposure to contaminants. There's that closer to zero initiative. You can look at it. The initiatives works towards reducing exposure of arsenic, lead, mercury, cadmium from foods consumed by babies and young children. Because as we see, some of these things, if they are consumed as residues in our children, they affect their growth and also can cause some kind of illnesses. I'm looking at the patterns of foodborne diseases. Patterns of foodborne diseases continue to evolve. In most cases, the epidemiology of foodborne diseases evolves in time due to several factors. Some of the factors are things like temperatures or climate change. Some temperatures will promote a faster growth of pathogens like Salmonella, E. coli, etc. Seasonality. You'll find that there are some seasonal spikes of some foodborne diseases. For instance, diarrhea and some cholera. When we have things like floods and the like, most cases foods will be affected. There's also population and enlightenment. How is the population enlightened on food safety? The more ignorant a population is on food safety, the more the burden of foodborne diseases, or the more the foodborne diseases continue to evolve or increase. You'll find that where there's a lot of enlightenment, we'll get less food safety illnesses. There's also urbanization and population growth and higher demands for mass production. When production is high or mass production, chances are high some compromise might be there. There's in the street food and informal markets. Those are the areas also that affect or increase the foodborne diseases. We have antimicrobial resistance. In most cases, continued use of antibiotics. This affects both, even like when you consume meat that has some residues of antibiotics on it, chances are high continue consumption will lead to antimicrobial resistance. Then there's a surveillance and reporting system. The better the detection system, the better identification systems, they identify more outbreaks, so it's easier to prevent or to correct. Whereas weaker systems will underestimate the true burden, causing the burden to a country and causing the burden to a country. Food processing and preservation and post-harvest handling. This is also another bit that really affects the patterns of foodborne diseases. Where food processing and preservation is not taken seriously, chances are high, spoilage, and things that can also cause food safety. Post-harvest handling, especially for cereals, could lead to things like aflatoxin poisoning and and also leave alone food poisoning. It can also lead to other foodborne diseases and also food waste. Then there is a success of implemented interventions. This affects foodborne diseases as they continue to evolve. Successful interventions help in lowering the chances of food safety. On foodborne diseases. So we can act and affect the patterns by collecting foodborne data. For instance, infections, causes of death. With such data, we can be able to look at ways to eliminate or reduce foodborne diseases, as he's easing the burden. So we also, by empowering people to embrace a food safety culture, educating and engaging communities and food businesses, for instance, market activities during World Food Safety Day. In Kenya, we must applaud what our Kenya Bureau of Standards did over this World Food Safety Day. They did an awareness in one of the markets. They did cleaning and talked to vendors on food safety. So as stakeholders in food safety, we can also embrace encouraging people or talking to people, explaining to them about food safety and the importance of it. Since the more empowered community is, the less the case chances of unsafe food. Also, building a robust food safety system. We call it our watertight food safety system in our production areas, in our handling of food, in our distribution. We can help prevent the food safety illnesses and ease the burden. Smarter controls, use of science, data, root cause analysis, and innovation for better decision making. These are very crucial. You cannot control something if you don't know the cause. So it's very important for us as food stakeholders. We use the data that is provided. We may not be able to get the data ourselves, but we have sites of producing the data where we can refer. Then we have multi-sector collaboration, work together across sectors and borders like we are doing today. We'll enlighten each other on ways to control or rather ways to improve food safety and to control foodborne diseases, hence easing the burden of foodborne diseases. Then we embrace the preventive controls that we have gotten from the data or the corrective actions from research and the like. Then there is the actions and results. When clear and achievable strategic actions are designed based on sound data, the results can be significant, impactful, and fast. For instance, if we get a root cause and root cause analysis for a certain outbreak, we are able to come up with a corrective action and establishment of future preventive controls. Also, based on statistics, we can understand food safety literacy for global awareness and adoption of food safety culture. You can imagine if everybody adopted a food safety culture, it would be safe. Then there's the utilization of scent guidelines, for instance, the Codex standards, the FDA, the WHO requirements, as well as each country's regulatory requirements. With this, we are able to reap the results of the targeted actions in food safety. Thank you so much. I come to the end of my presentation. Over to you, Samantha. Thank you so much. Samantha, hand it over to our moderator today. unless there's any question.
Thank you so much, thank you so much for such a powerful presentation, Jacinta. I would advise everyone to hold on to their questions as we move through our speakers, and we will open up a question and answer session. So we'll quickly move on to our second speaker, Sinao. Over to you, sir.
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Sunal, as I have been introduced. Um, I'm very happy to be celebrating my 2026 World Food Safety Day with all of you on the call. Um, it's the theme, as mentioned, that it is from burden to solutions, food safety everywhere. Okay. I'll be quickly sharing my slides. I'm not very familiar with Zoom, so you'll bear with me. Let's quickly see. Yes, you can send your questions through. Um, that's what you can do for now on the chat box, as I am busy trying to see how to share on Zoom. Zoom is, let's see, I'm more familiar with Teams than Zoom. So for me, it's like trying to fix a puzzle, but please bear with me. Um, yes, we appreciate that great presentation from Justin. Okay, something is not working here. It is. That's me in practice and practice, but when it's your time to shine, you will have your technical issues. Okay, let's try this one. It says documents. Let's see. Apologies, guys. Please bear with me. Okay, I think I need to just share the screen. Oh, can you all see my screen?
Yes,
It's
we
Try
can.
it.
your screen.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. As I've said, I'm very familiar with Zoom. I'm more of a Teams person. But thank you so much for all your patience. And as I've said, my name is Sinawo Mzinga. They've shared my full introduction into the into the food industry as to who I am in the industry. And I hope that we will journey together about this year's food safety theme for the World Food Safety Day celebration. Okay, let's see. Next slide. So, number one, before I get into the topic that I was called for today, I thought it would be very much important to highlight a few things about the theme of this year, which says from burden to solutions, safe food everywhere. I think this theme needs to be well understood in the industry, not only on the day of celebrating Food Safety Day. It is a thing that needs to be lived in organizations so that we can not take food safety as a burden, but we can find solutions out of food safety. Okay. And we understand very well as food safety professionals that safety can also be a very um, stringent financial burden into some organizations. But I always say that if it is done right, it will save you a lot of money because food safety does require a lot of finance for you to actually implement it successfully. But now let's look at some of the basic topics that actually contribute to or that can help an organization in terms of saving money and availing that money for food safety related issues. Okay. A topic of mass balance. We all know that through traceability, we can actually we are required by the standards to conduct a mass balance. Okay. So when your mass balance is including the finance related um, to the waste and losses that are being procured by the organization, or we can actually understand and find means in which we can reduce the financial losses because now we are putting a price tag to every wastage that happens within your business. And now can take that money that we are losing from the wastages and put it together to enhance our food safety management systems. I love food safety management systems. That's why I had to start here. Okay. Um, so that's the first point of call. We need to look at our mass balance. How does our mass balances during traceability translate to financial losses of the organization? And so that we can be able to save money and put more money for food safety. And by that, we will reduce the burden of food safety becoming an issue in the companies because quality managers will reason with me on this one to say that it is always complained upon that this food safety is taking money because there needs to be money for cleaning, there needs to be money for testing, there needs to be money for that, there needs to be money for that, that enhances food safety. And then number two, supplier approvals. It's one of the most important thing that we need, or topic that we need to look at very critically, because if you do your supplier approval correctly, the standard requires you to have a specific criteria in which you're going to approve your suppliers upon. Okay. So if you follow that process very stringently, you will actually reduce the cost in terms of testing. And because now you're already getting the batches coming from organizations already tested. And now you can reduce a little bit of financial strain from your side, and you can just select a few batches just to verify that the testing that is done by your supplier, it is actually a valid test. So we need to look at all of these small little things. And by having the right COA, or that is done correctly, truthfully, then you will prevent your organization from producing unsafe food. Just imagine having an food product that has been purchased, but you do not know the safety of the raw materials that went into it. And then later on, you realize that this whole batch that you have produced is actually not safe for human consumption. Okay. And then my third point is FAIRFul. Okay. I know FSSC has been one of the standards that has enforced the use of principles of FAIRFul. FEFO is actually there to save money. Okay. It is there to save money. If we can follow those principles correctly, then we can save a lot of money. And by the way, FEFO stands for first expiry, first out. I know we are all familiar with the principle of FIFO, but now FEFO is another important principle of stock rotation you need to understand, especially from the point of raw material usages. Okay. So if you know that this specific ingredient is getting closer to the expiry date, please ensure that that ingredient, it is one of the ingredients that gets to be used first, so that when it expires, it has already been processed. Because if you're gonna keep on writing off stock, that is money that could have been used to enhance your food safety management system and building stronger food safety culture within your organization. Okay. And you can make sure that your FIFO principles are monitored on a monthly basis to ensure that we do not have any expiring raw materials. Okay. Okay. Now, I actually sat down and thought a little bit deeper on the food fraud. In South Africa, we've been experiencing a lot of food fraud incidences lately, and it actually got to me to think about it and all the issues that we've been experiencing. For example, the people that commit food fraud, number one, they are not fully aware of the food safety risks associated with the fraud that they are committing. Okay, they're just putting materials for economic gain without understanding the risks associated with the materials they are putting into the food. For example, we had a situation where biscuits were actually manufactured fraudulently by people in the backyard, and they've added one of the pesticides into the food, which is aluminum phosphate. Okay, so that incident alone killed about 200 school kids in South Africa because these people were fraudulently producing food without understanding the risks associated with the ingredients they are adding into the food. Okay. I think that is just my 2 cents into the part of food safety management systems um, managed very well and reducing the burden, but bringing solutions to provide safe food everywhere. But then now let's look at what I'm called for here. Okay. Um, Now we're going to be looking at the impact of food safety incidents at the economy of the country. Okay. Now, into the economy, we need to understand that we have businesses and industry losses. If food safety is not done correctly, it actually causes um, product recalls. We all know that product recalls are such costly exercise into our organizations, and it requires a lot of people to be involved. It includes regulatory compliance issues that you will experience after a product recall. You will actually have to dispose the contaminated product if you do not follow your food safety principles or protocols correctly. And the safe disposal of contaminated products is really expensive. I'm speaking this based on experience because I have been not in a product recall situation, however, having to dispose contaminated materials you need to pay a fee to dispose safely the contaminated materials. We all know the situation that South Africa has experienced in 2018, where we had Listeria monocytogenes outbreak, which led to also people dying as a result of that product contamination. So safe disposal is a costly exercise on its own, and companies lose a lot of money out of it. And however, they are um, mandated to safely dispose those products. There's no other way. Though people like to say send it to the pigs, we need to understand if you're going to be sending it to the pigs are part of our food chain, and if that pig eats a contaminated product, yes, that pig might survive that contamination. However, the contamination does not end; it continues in the livelihood of that pig, and it will come back to you as an end user or the consumer of the pork that is coming from the pig, and you will actually get sick as well. Okay, so we need to really look at the methods of disposal of our waste, okay? Because it does affect the industry, it does affect the businesses, okay? And then another hit that we get from unsafe food, it is the investigation and corrective action costs, okay? So to sit down and investigate the root cause of an incident, I remember Jacinta highlighted the investigation using the principles of 5 whys, fishbone methods, and many other methods that are available for the investigation of incidences relating to the safety of the food. They are costly because now the people need to be out of their normal activity to sit down and investigate these food safety issues, okay, in the organization and come up with corrective actions. And we know that corrective actions sometimes they require money to be made available to improve the food safety management system, to improve the facility, to improve the fabrication of the factory, to improve the equipment of the processing. So it does come at a cost, but we do encourage a lot as food safety professionals that corrective actions should not just be a tick exercise to say, I have submitted my corrective action or have done corrective action. It must be thoroughly done. It must have a horizontal deployment. When we speak about horizontal deployment, we need to take it from the point of top. How do we take it? How do we implement it? We start from top to bottom. So the corrective actions need to be looked at in all aspects in the business so that we can have an effective and continually improve our food businesses. Okay. But it comes at a cost, and we must not shy away of the cost that corrective actions bring into our organizations, because I've seen it quite a lot as an auditor that organizations will just put pictures together or try to mimic a situation that an action has been successfully closed. Please, guys, let's do our corrective actions correctly so that we can avoid having food safety incidents, okay? So now, looking at the legal claims and compensation payments, when food safety is not done correctly in organizations, it does have a legal impact because we get fined by the local government, we get fined by the regulators in our countries. We also need to compensate sometimes the people who have actually experienced the losses within their families, within their spaces. So we need to understand that there is legal cost when it comes to food safety. for us to actually effectively um, avoid those claims, let's rather do things right the first time. And we need to be aware of these legal regulations. For example, in South Africa, we've got the Consumer Protection Act, and some of the legislation coming from the Department of Health. So we need to be up to date as food safety professionals with regards to the laws that govern food safety within our countries, so that we can avoid having food safety incidents, number one, and we can avoid having those losses as a matter of negligence. Okay. And ultimately, this is the most important aspect. Okay, this is the most important aspect of food safety. Without the consumer, there is no point of producing the product. We need to understand that we are producing the product for the consumer, and the consumer needs to be confident that the food that they are going to consume is safe for human consumption. So, in a situation where a specific product or a specific brand has been identified to have um, to have an issue or to be unsafe for human consumption, consumers start running away from that product. They do not trust, even if you can say it is done right, they will never trust it. And I'm one example of such experiences. After the Listeria monocytogenes outbreak in South Africa, for example, I am no longer eating cold meats. I'm no longer eating polony or anything related to the materials that are used in manufacturing of polony um, or related products, because I do not trust any of the cold meats. I do not care where I am in the world, not necessarily in South Africa, but wherever I am in the world, I would not consume any cold meat under any situation, because I always worry about my health. Am I gonna be feeling okay after consuming this kind of product? Okay, so that is the loss of consumer confidence. And obviously, when the consumer confidence has depreciated, that means the sales will go down. And obviously, that will also mean that some people in your workplace might need to be retrenched, okay? Because you can no longer afford paying those people. Okay. And this actually reminds me of one incident I've actually come across when I was auditing a facility around South Africa. And um, after these people, I've done the audit, I've reported on the audit performance. They told me, actually, okay, I heard a very loud noise coming. I don't know how did those news travel so fast, because we're still busy in the boardroom doing the closing meeting of the audit. And then I heard a loud noise, forklift hooting, people ululating, music playing. It was just a big celebration in that factory. You know why? I actually also wanted to know what is happening. Are they celebrating the certificate, or that the audit has been completed? What is happening? And I was called by the general manager to go into the factory floor again. And then I saw people, some people were even crying. Some people were crying. And I'm like, what is happening? Someone please put me into the right scheme as far as this facility is concerned. And one lady came to me and she was like, I really appreciate your assessment into our facility, because without the certification, without us having to conform to food safety requirements on a daily basis, that means we do not have jobs. That means we cannot sustain our families. And I was really touched by that. And it was a very big celebration. And now that goes to an extent to show that these people are very much concerned about the consumer trust and consumer confidence into the products that they are producing. Okay. Um, and we know that when we have food safety issues or food safety incidents, our brand gets damaged and the sales get to decline. Okay. Okay, foodborne illnesses. We need to understand that foodborne illnesses is also one of the things that affect productivity in our facilities, in our workplaces, in different industries, not necessarily only into the food industries. Everyone gets affected when we have foodborne illnesses, yeah, in our countries, at the global level as well. Because at the end of the day, when people become ill from contaminated food, they also miss work because you have a runny tummy, okay? And you can't go to school. You're missing out on your school performance or school activities. So these are the impacts that we actually experience as far as productivity is concerned. And you know that if you miss work or you miss school, your workload piles up and you will not cope with the workload that you have to be completing. Okay. And we experience reduced productivity even when we return because you need now to go back and try to manage the situations that were occurring when you were not at work. Okay. So in as a country, as an organization, there is a lot of slowness when it comes to productivity because now people are trying to get back to normal and trying to understand all the issues that were happening in their absence. Okay, and it also requires caregivers who also lose working time. Okay, so everybody gets affected by all of this. And for businesses, this absenteeism can disrupt operations and increase labor cost. And actually, it can also lead to further food safety issues in your organization. Okay, how does it leads to further food safety issues in your organization? Imagine that in your facility that you are producing food at, you have about 20 people who are sick after eating food from the canteen that was not following the food safety principles or protocols in terms of producing the food that is meant for the staff. Okay, now you've lost 20 people that are not at work. That means, number one, you're going to have to have staff that is brand new. And these people might not be fully fledged or fully understanding the food safety protocols in your facility. Yes, you can train them on food safety induction and so on. However, you cannot train a person now and expect them to perform perfectly on the first day that they're starting work. Okay, so now they will do some of the non-food industry behaviors. They will bring those behaviors that they do outside in their personal lives, and they are actually not allowed in the food industry, uh, like um, like picking up product from the floor and putting it back into the production line because this person is not used to this. They've got this a thing of saying 10 seconds a rule or 3 seconds a rule. Okay. So they do not understand as the science behind why you cannot take a product from the floor and putting it back on the production line because these principles are new to them. Okay, so at the end of the day, you're gonna come up with a product that is contaminated with Listeria monocytogenes because the person who was walking on that floor was walking on top of a drain with their shoes, and then now the floor is contaminated with Listeria monocytogenes, and when the product falls, especially if it's a meat product or a proteinaceous product, it will be contaminated by that Listeria monocytogenes, and when you put it back onto the conveyor belt, the whole conveyor belt gets contaminated with Listeria monocytogenes, and at the end of the day, you have an unsafe product um, that is being produced. So it does affect the absenteeism of people does affect your food safety because your people that you're gonna hire as temporary staff for that specific day or those days, they will not easily adapt to the culture of food safety because they've not been working in food factory before. But as an organization, you need to have people so that you can get your numbers, your production numbers correctly. Okay, so this does affect a lot of organizations. And then, as far as trade and export is concerned, we know that if there is a food safety incident or a foodborne illness that has been reported or an outbreak, we're going to have some export bans and trade restrictions. For example, they will say at the ports that we're no longer permitted to export certain products from a specific country because that country has an outbreak on a specific bacteria or even a heavy metal, whatever the situation may be. That basically means as a country, you do not have control over food safety issues. Okay, so we need to be aware how these things impact. It's not just impacting your factory, but it impacts everyone else because now the whole export is affected because of one mistake that was not or one protocol that was not followed correctly. Okay, and in some situations where the export people become more they try to be more accommodating. They will want to have more inspections as well. And also certification bodies will also look into additional risks that are carried by the products. And it increases not only the inspection, but it increases the pressure to your organization that is producing that specific kind of food product. Okay. And now at the end of the day, when we have export bans, that means we cannot access certain markets because certain products are not permitted that are coming from certain countries to be imported by other countries. So now people do not have market access as a result of that specific outbreak of foodborne illness that has been identified and damage to international reputation. Okay, international reputation. Remember, if South Africa has an issue with managing Listeria monocytogenes, now other countries are going to start being concerned whether South Africa, Kenya, or Zimbabwe has the necessary skills to manage that that specific issue. Okay, and as a matter of fact, now people never or start not trusting products coming from our country because we are not proving ourselves to be capable to manage that specific food safety illness or outbreak. At a global scale, when we have food safety, foodborne illnesses, um, and food safety outbreaks, we need to go see the doctors. And we are causing a lot of congestion at the medical facilities because now everybody is sick, everybody is a priority. and we're trying to manage these little people that have got are immunocompromised because they cannot really fight these illnesses on their own, especially if it's a micro-related uh, um, foodborne illnesses. Okay, so we are flooding, we are causing pressure to our medical facilities, and also the diagnostic and testing laboratory analysis. The people that work in the laboratories are actually much pressed to get things done correctly. And this also leaves another room for them to make mistakes because they need to cope with the pressure, and they need to work overtime. They are exhausted, they are fatigued, and some of the results might not be accurate in some situations. I'm speaking this as an experienced laboratory analyst. I've worked as a chemist and as a microbiologist. There is so much pressure that people in the laboratories face when there is an outbreak because they need to make sure the accuracy of the results. They need to work extra hours. They need to sacrifice time for their families. So there is a lot at stake with foodborne illnesses and outbreaks, okay? And medication and treatment expenses also get to spike up, affecting our economic activities as a country, as people, as households, because now we can no longer afford getting entertainment as a result of us having to take care of our medical expenses. Okay. And then in the long term, these foodborne illnesses may also cause other complications like your kidney failures, arthritis, neurological disorders, depending on what type of foodborne illness was it. Okay, so we need to be aware as food safety professionals that um, we need to build a culture in our organizations that will help us not to only look at things as a ticking exercise, but putting every due diligence to ensure that we protect ourselves, we protect our families, because at the end of the day, our families also eat the food that we produce in the factories, okay? We protect those that are in hospitals, we protect the overall food supply value chain. Okay. And then these long-term human costs would include things like, that when you have a kidney disease, a chronic kidney disease, you will actually have to buy medication on a consistent basis. You need to make sure that you've got medication for arthritis, you keep active, and in some situation, people become malnutrified because they also take a big amount uh, uh, of their income to ensure that they've got the right medication. However, now they can't buy proper food because of these additional costs that come as a result of the long-term um, health impacts. And more importantly, we also need to consider impact on the country itself, not specifically South Africa, but on the country itself. The country has public health expenditures as a result of that foodborne illness. When countries have such expenditures, then other health issues will not be adequately addressed because we had to find prioritization within the expenditures. And as I said earlier on, that workforce productivity, not only in your company, but in the industry as a whole, in the business sector as a whole, we lose the productivity of our workforce, and we get affected through agricultural and food exports. Okay. And we also spoke about the part of consumer confidence on the brand. I will never eat a cold meat product. That's the vow I made to myself. Okay. And the retail and hospitality sectors also get impacted by these food safety issues because tourism will actually also be reduced. Tourism activities will be reduced because people do not trust if they're going to be buying a safe food product when they go to restaurants, when they go to the shops to get food. Okay. So, in summary, we have um, direct costs to the healthcare, to the treatment and investigation of the health or foodborne illnesses or outbreaks. Those costs are really affecting organizations. They are affecting the economy of our country. They are affecting uh, um, the economic activities within the country because money now is going on to one side, which is um, the health of the people. And the indirect costs are those of loss of productivity and income because people need to be retrenched as a result of foodborne illnesses and outbreaks because companies can no longer afford paying the salaries of those people, okay? And then in terms of the businesses that are producing food, there is a cost of recall, bringing back the product from the market, having to deal with legal responsibilities that are associated with the foodborne illness, and also their reputation gets damaged after there has been a food safety incident within their organization. And there's also societal costs that are involved with regards to the foodborne illnesses. For example, we get a reduced trade because we can no longer export. We get a reduced tourism. There's less tourism activity because people do not trust food that they're going to be buying at the restaurants, at the shops, and so on. And we also come through the long-term health consequences. Okay. Now, going to, this is my second last slide. I think I went over to someone else's time, and I'm almost done. But the second point is this the ranking guide. Okay, we need to understand how do we manage or how do we identify risks before they become serious issues within our organization, within the food industry as a whole. Okay. And this is one of the things that organizations need to understand that are producing food, that food safety does not end when the organization passes the audit. I know organizations have got this tendency of trying to fix things on last minute just before the audit, and then after the audit, everything collapses back again. I've seen this picture on LinkedIn once where they said before the audit, um, it's like a gravel road, and then during the audit, it's a tar road. Just after the auditor has left, it goes back to the gravel road. That kind of attitude within the organization needs to end. Okay. It needs to end because it is that kind of attitude that leads organizations to having product recalls that lead to outbreaks because we have an audit mentality. However, our food safety systems need to be operational on a daily basis. We do not do things, we do not put our systems correct or put them right just because we want to pass the audit. It needs to be a live system on a daily basis that is lived. Okay. And now, speaking into the actual ranking now of the risk, we need to look at our food safety and quality culture. Okay, so food safety and quality culture is not a thing of only the production staff, the product handling staff. It starts with the CEO being committed to food safety and quality culture, demonstrating that they are in, they will provide all the necessary support that is required by the food safety management system to ensure that food safety is adhered throughout. One of these examples that I've experienced back when I was fully in the industry, that means in the factory now, one company I used to work for, the GM was one person who would not wear his hairnet when he goes um, into the production area. Okay, and me as a joiner was very passionate about food safety. I asked people around me, why is he not putting a hairnet? Yes, I'm new in the company, but I want to understand, why is he not putting on a hairnet? Why is he not wearing his protective clothing? They said, no, he's the owner. I said, I do not worry about whether he's an owner or he is a cleaner. Everybody needs to demonstrate good culture, because people that are working in production are learning from top management. If top management is not committed and is not serious about food safety and quality culture, at the end of the day, it's going to affect how people in the factory floor respond to the protocols of food safety, because the top manager in the business is not following food safety. Then why, as a packer, should I be following food safety protocols? So we need to have a demonstrable food safety and quality culture where people are not afraid to speak up about food safety issues, uh, not only to their peers, but also to top management. Because if top management is not leading by example, at the end of the day, the people on the factory floor are also not going to be living the culture that is required by the organizations, and people actually feel intimidated to, or feel worried to voice out about food safety issues. And this is actually what we do not want in our industry. We want people to speak freely about issues that are relating to food safety and quality within their organizations. And then our hazard analysis. We all know HACCP, and HACCP is the engine of any food safety management system, be it you have implemented FSSC 22000 or BRCGS standard or IFS, whatever standard you have implemented, it will require you to have a HACCP, hazard analysis and critical control point system. Okay, so our hazard analysis need to be relevant to the organization. It needs to be done by a representation of every department in our organization, because the quality manager alone will not have all the insights into engineering, will not know all the engineering issues that can also contribute to the safety of the product. Okay, so our hazard analysis needs to be robust, and it needs to be well developed, and the control measures of the hazard analysis need to be adequately implemented into the food safety management system, because it is no good to have a full hazard that is well documented, but in practice, nothing is being done about the hazards that have been identified. Okay, and then another risk ranking guide we need to look at the non-conforming product reports. We need to do the trend analysis. Our monthly food safety meetings are not just for reporting. However, they need to give us inputs and insights into what is happening, what is it that we are failing on as an organization. Before it gets to a point of a product recall, you can have some insights from the non-conforming product reports that you are getting from your organization. Okay, so please make sure that your trending is always up to date and you highlight the most significant trends into your non-conforming product reports on a monthly basis. And you can put this in even into your notice boards so that people on the factory floor are also aware. Because another thing that we are failing as food safety professionals is that we know, and the management will know the issues that are affecting the safety of our product because we attend the monthly food safety meetings. However, the person on the factory floor might not necessarily get that information. So that's why I'm saying we need to put it into our notice boards. And if we've got TV screens in our facility, demonstrate how people can also avoid these things by putting on 1 point lessons and so on. Okay. And your environmental monitoring is another indicator that will show you that you are actually having a potential risk of a product contamination. If you are doing your environmental monitoring properly, your environmental monitoring should demonstrate to you that there is a risk of contamination that is coming if you do not address certain issues as far as your environmental monitoring performance is concerned, because that's where you're gonna know that you've got a listeria issue with your drains and your ingredients have got pathogens that are actually coming through as we go on with the testing. Okay, so that is a good a way of ranking whether are you getting close to having a product recall or you are still performing well as far as your food safety is concerned. And then food safety near misses. Okay, as, as food safety and quality professionals, we need to be aware of the food safety nuances, not only within our organization, but in the industry as a whole, because we can actually try to take the information that is happening outside and evaluate our food safety management systems to see whether are we close to also experiencing the same issues that other organizations are actually experiencing, or are we maintaining our food safety programs very well? So we need to be aware of the food safety nemesis. Also in our organizations, we need to be aware of food safety nemesis. And after you have been aware of safety nemesis, write yourself a short note of your lessons that you have learned from those nemesis and try to see how can you improve your food safety management system or food safety management program. And last, I think this is my last point. We need to review the food safety management systems effectively. We don't just change the review date, people. I know sometimes we get too busy, but we don't just change the review date on documents and say we have reviewed the system. It does not work like that. We need to see and go through the issues that we have been experiencing as far as our hazard analysis is concerned, as far as our non-conforming products and reports are concerned, as far as our environmental monitoring is concerned, as far as the industry trends are concerned, and as far as our um, um, uh, as far as our regulators and estimates are concerned. Okay. And I would like to thank all of you for being part of this session of celebrating the World Food Safety Day, from burden to solutions, safe food everywhere. Thank you. Over to you, moderator.
A round of applause for our presenter. Thank you so much for the brilliant insights, Sinao. And thank you for enlightening us in terms of especially the business risks and all the risks around it. Our next segment addresses a core pillar of the Global Food Business Network, that food safety does not exist in a silo, but we exist along with regulators, labs, logistics providers, and producers, and all of us must speak the same language. Please give a warm virtual welcome to Giovanni. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly as he takes us through his presentation.
Yes, hi. Good morning from California. It's around 2:16 a.m. So I apologize for not turning on the camera because everyone's sleeping at my house right now. Um, so I don't have a presentation because I don't know how to share it. I apologize for that. But I just want to speak about my experiences as a food safety inspector and manager, and all the different titles that I've had throughout the years. When I was a teenager, I worked for a fast food chain. And at the time, I had no idea that one of the most significant food safety outbreaks in modern history would eventually change the way our industry thinks about food safety. Um, I was very young, and I remember listening to the president of the company apologizing for the hundreds of people that were affected, and also the children that died due to complications of this foodborne pathogen. The youngest was 17 months old, and unfortunately, the young man, the toddler didn't even eat the the hamburger. He was dropped off by his father to a daycare where uh, employees of this chain of this restaurant left their child who had E. coli. And as you know, children end up touching toys after they touch certain parts of their body, and they can contaminate them, and they put everything in their mouth. Uh, this young man was 17 months old, and he died in his father's arm. So these are children that never had the opportunity to go to school, fall in love, get married, have children of their own. And that is the reason why I'm very passionate about food safety. So, years later, after working in food manufacturing, retail food operations, distribution, sanitation, pest management, regulatory compliance, and auditing, I came to appreciate a lesson that applies far beyond one company or one outbreak. Food safety problems rarely start when they're discovered. A contamination issue identified at retail may have started with a supplier. A recall announced by a manufacturer may have originated with an ingredient. A sanitation problem may have begun with an equipment purchasing decision made months earlier. Food safety is not owned by one department. It is not owned by one company. It is not owned by one government agency. Food safety is a shared responsibility across the entire food value uh, chain. Today, I would like to share a few examples that demonstrate why collaboration matters. Let's talk about the infant formula. And I know that many of you probably are not here from California or the United States. I don't know. But let's start with the infant formula. I chose this example because when the consumer is an infant, there is almost no margin for error. Recently, dozens of infants became seriously ill and were hospitalized during an infant formula outbreak investigation. When we hear that, our instinct is to look for a single point of failure. We want a simple answer. What happened? Who's responsible? Where did the problem start? But food safety is rarely that simple. Was it the ingredient? Was it the supplier? Was it the manufacturing process? Was it environmental contamination? Was it somewhere else in the supply chain? Protecting infants requires suppliers, manufacturers, sanitation teams, laboratories, healthcare providers, regulators, retailers, and parents all working together. When something goes wrong, the answer is rarely found by looking at one piece of the system. You have to follow the entire food chain. And what I found out during my research is that in 1996, FDA proposed broader microbiological controls for powder infant formula, including standards involving organisms such as Bacillus cereus. Years later, that the final regulatory framework focused more narrowly on pathogens with documented illness associations in powdered infant formula. Now, after an infant botulism outbreak linked to powdered infant formula, the FDA is again evaluating spore-forming pathogens, including Clostridium botulism and Bacillus cereus, uh, which makes me think about FISMA, because FISMA was enacted so we can stop being reactive and be more proactive. Um, Another example is the Peanut Corporation of America outbreak. What made this event so significant was that a problem associated with one supplier affected hundreds of products and numerous companies throughout the food chain. Food safety does not begin when ingredients arrive at our facility. It begins with supplier approval, supplier verification, communication, traceability, and a willingness to act quickly when problems are identified. One supplier, like Peanut Corporation of America, can impact an entire industry. Another thing that I would like to discuss is things that I have seen in the field is when companies purchase equipment. Um, Sometimes they purchase equipment from other countries, and I'm not saying that that's bad, but equipment must be evaluated against recognized food safety, sanitation, worker safety, and regulatory expectations before it is installed. So a machine that you're trying to save money on can become expensive when it creates cleanability problems, sanitation and allergen control gaps, maintenance and replacement part delays, worker safety hazards, regulatory approval and plan review delays. So here in Los Angeles County, if a health inspector goes into a food manufacturer and they find that the equipment is not ANSI or NSF approved, the health inspector will tag it and will not allow the food manufacturer to use that equipment. So that becomes even more costly because now you can't use the machine. And if you use the machine, you may end up going to a hearing and you might end up losing your permit and not be able to no longer produce any food. So that's why it's purchasers should not purchasing should not decide alone. Food safety, sanitation, engineering, maintenance, operations, worker safety, and regulators need a seat before installation. Another thing that I would like to talk about really quick is about pest management. A lot of pest control operators come in sometimes during the nighttime, and a lot of operators don't get to see the pest control operator, don't get to walk with the pest control operator, and that is a problem. I remember inspecting a food facility, and they would have probably gotten a better score if they would have read their reports. What's happening is a lot of operators get their reports and they just file them away in a binder, never read them. And I could tell that they never read them because the same deterioration, this violations that I found, the same disrepair violations that I found, uh, were written by the pest control operator well over a year. So many people assume rodents and other pests are the responsibility of the pest control company. In reality, pests are a facility wide issue. When everyone works together, their problem can be controlled. When departments work in isolation, the problem usually returns. And the one of the things that I've noticed, operators always put blame on the pest control operator. But in reality, is this the pest control operators are there probably once a week, twice a week, or once a month, depending on the contract. So we need to take as operators responsibility for integrated pest management. Transportation and distribution. I want to briefly talk about that. Food safety does not stop when a product leaves the manufacturing facility. A product may leave a facility in perfect condition, but if transportation controls fail, consumers may still be placed at risk. Every link in the chain matters. I remember inspecting a trailer and finding roaches in the crannies of the trailer. So we have to give due diligence to ensure that what we use to transport our food is not going to cause adulteration. And in closing, I would like to state that food safety is often described as a regulatory obligation. I see it differently. Food safety is trust. Every farmer trusts that the next person in the chain will do their job. Every manufacturer trusts their suppliers. Every retailer trusts the products they receive. Every parent trusts the food they feed their child. And every consumer trusts that the people behind their food made the right decisions when no one was watching. That trust is earned through collaboration. And that is why food safety is everyone's responsibility. Thank you.
A virtual round of applause to our speaker, Giovanni. Thank you for reminding us that we are in an interconnected web of preserving food safety in all the chains. And as you mentioned, I just wanted to take us back to an incident that once happened in China, where the 2008 Chinese milk scandal, where melamine was put in milk to heighten the protein levels, and the impact were that 290,000 children plus were poisoned, with over 50,000 hospitalized and a number of infant deaths. So the issue of food safety is a critical one. We'll get into our fourth speaker. Please take the floor.
Samantha, thank you for giving me the floor. Permit me to share my screen. Okay, I don't know if my screen is visible enough.
Yes, it is visible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. So I think Jacinta, Sinao, and Giovanni have practically or literally shared everything worth sharing. Jacinta, thank you for giving us so much statistics on the occurrence of foodborne illnesses and diseases. And it's quite interesting for us to note the increasing demand in roles such as monitoring and evaluation specialist and data analyst, because we live in an era where data is very powerful and very important to make structured decisions and impactful decisions. It was nice hearing Sinao talk about food fraud and the ability for companies to put into place or implement food defense mechanisms, and also analyzing business and industry losses. And Giovanni, thank you for mentioning that food safety is not just a one-man show, but it's a joint responsibility and collaboration from everybody. Um, I think this was really presented by Jacinta earlier. Statistics relative to foodborne illnesses and diseases, where it was recorded that 600 million people fall ill each year from unsafe food. And out of these 600 million, we have 420,000 deaths caused by foodborne diseases annually. This data is literally undeniable, and it's very loud, showing how dangerous foodborne illnesses and diseases are. But it is important for us to note what the Food and Agricultural Organization says or links these foodborne illnesses and diseases to. And according to the FAO, food additives, contaminants and toxins, residue of veterinary drugs, pesticide residues, and microbiological hazards are a main cause of these food safety or foodborne illnesses and diseases. And looking at all of this, we can notice that most of them are linked to chemical hazards. But on the other end, there is this other important aspect, which is the food allergens. Generally, it is very neglected, but also very important to note that food allergens are also a very good cause for the number of uh, deaths linked to food safety hazards. Statistically, we have 6.26 or 6,260,000 people fall sick from chemical hazards, and out of this uh, total number, 73% of death comes from chemical hazards. Most of these chemical hazards are from inorganic arsenic, lead, and mycotoxins. As per statistics, we have 27% of deaths which are caused by biological hazards, with Salmonella and E. coli taking the lead on the various bacteria for this death. It's true we've not had any specific data relative to the death toll on physical hazards, but it's important to know here the three types of hazards which could be linked to foodborne diseases, or which are linked to food safety. That's the chemical hazards, the biological hazards, and the physical hazards. But it's also important for us to know the stakeholders here. Who are those involved in the food chain? We have the government. The government has a role in playing. They have regulations to put in place. They have inspections to do. They have enforcements they need to do by probably random check-ins in companies and industries to ensure that what is documented is actually practiced by these companies. They have standard settings, and we are going to see a few probably later ahead. The second important stakeholders here are food businesses. By food businesses, Jacinta presented this clearly, taking into account the farmers. We have suppliers, we have transporters, we have retailers, we have distributors, and we have vendors, and the production company themselves. Each of these people need to ensure that in the production and the handling of everything which is being done, there are safe measures which are being put in place to avoid cross-contamination and probably food poisoning. The next people here are the consumers. It will be needless for the government to, be practical in what they are doing, for food business to be practical, and for consumers not to think of their own personal safety. And by personal safety, most of the personal safety issues we are going to be highlighting are personal hygiene. The food can be very safe, but by the time it arrives the consumers, due to inadequate or poor personal hygiene, the food gets contaminated at their level, they consume, and it becomes a problem. And the last actors or stakeholders here are health professionals. And health professionals here, their main role is for surveillance, diagnosis, and reporting of foodborne illnesses. So how can the government best act, or how can they be a key player in ensuring food safety within the economy? By implementing policies and programs. For food businesses, they need to ensure that practices are properly done and procedures properly maintained. And it's not just about documentation, as I earlier said. They need to ensure that what is actually being said or documented is literally or practically done on floor. For the consumers, they need to ensure best practices are being followed. And for health professionals, they need to organize more programs, sensitization programs or awareness programs. But according to the Codex, the World Health Organization and the Food and Agricultural Organization, the responsibilities are distributed as such, with the food business being the primary responsible person in the food chain. The government follows, health professionals, and then we have the consumers. But how do you efficiently get a solution to a problem? There are three things which you must definitely take into consideration. The first one is data. You should be able to ask yourself, what data do you have available and where can you get this data? There are many sources where, or many areas, or many places where you could get data from. For example, you could go to academic research, you could go to various literature being written, you could go to case studies with respect to probably a particular bacteria, a particular disease, or a particular virus, and to have more information. The next thing you have to focus on, what are the actors here? So what are the most affected by what you are, the problem you are trying to solve? Where are they and why are these people affected? Then the last one are the actions you'll be taking. Or you have to first evaluate what has been done by other people, what is being presently done, and what can be done to better ameliorate the problem or the foodborne issue, the food safety issue at hand. One thing we need to understand is that zero incidents is no log. It is a whole system which spans through 6 things. The first one is risk-based thinking, whereby every process assessed for what can go wrong before it goes wrong. And that's why it is very important for each and every stakeholder to draft both a preventive maintenance of a preventive action plan and also a corrective action plan. Because most often people focus on the corrective action plan, but what about the preventive action plan? The preventive action plan helps you tackle the problem before it actually comes into play. And we need to note that food safety is the foundation and not just the ceiling. The second thing is having living documentation, whereby your policies, your programs, your SOPs, your PRPs, your OPRPs, all must be updated in real time with the activities. They should not just be revised as like it is a formality. No, it is not a formality. It is a real time something. And the good thing is, when doing this, you should be able to involve those literally in these activities. It'll be needless for you to draft a document without involving those in the field. Involving those in the field gives you a practical guideline, and it helps you to better assess the problems which are being faced. You are not probably a field person, you draft a document and you're trying to implement it on people in the field, it might not work. Because even if they implement it, they will not implement it effectively. So there is this correlation which has to be done between the field operators and you who drafts the document. The next one is competent people. It's important for trainings to be undergone, to be done to all staffs or all respective stakeholders to ensure that people understand why they are doing something and not just the what. Because when you understand the why, you would always perform better. And earlier I spoke about corrective actions and preventive actions. And Sinao, when presenting, mentions the fact that it is very important for us to review actions and close them. So every non-conformance, every root cause, every action should be verified and closed. And they should not just be closed. Before closing, the effectiveness of these actions should be evaluated. And this is where it brings us to data-driven decisions, where each action or each stakeholder should be able to define specific key performance indicators, which should be measured, reported, and acted upon. It's also important to have objective reviews as a performance tool and not just a compliance exercise. And the last way in building a sustainable system is by implementing a safety culture. Implementing a safety culture is not just about telling people what to do, but it's also about them embracing it into their DNA. Because when someone embraces something in their DNA, they take it personal. They don't just take it like a formality or like a requirement. And as I usually say, you cannot implement or you cannot do what is not a part of you. So the system only works when every person in the building, from leadership to the consumer, owns food safety. But let us look at some hidden hazards within the food chain or the value food chain, the food value chain, which are being neglected. Allergen blind spots. We have cross contact. We have shared utensils. We have mislabeled special meals. It's very important that during transportation of materials, either from the farm to the market or from the supplier to the company, allergens should be specially marked. They should be specially identified so as to avoid cross contact with other products. There's temperature abuse for delivery of products. We all know that the delivery of dairy products will be different from the delivery of dry products or chilled products or frozen products because they have different temperature ranges at which they are to be delivered. And a non-respect of these temperatures could lead to the proliferation of microbacteria or microorganisms within them, thereby leading to a food safety problem. The next one is cleaning verification gaps. It's not just about looking and seeing if it's clean, it's about you verifying if they are clean. Generally, the tendency is we look and pass. No, but what other actions are you taking to verify that this surface is clean? That's why in certain food businesses or companies, you would see them doing probably monthly swab tests for their surfaces to ensure that, yes, the cleaning which is being done by their personnel is actually effective and that they are using the right cleaning tools or the right cleaning chemicals in their processes. Another is supplier blind trust. You need to not only trust your supplier, but you should be able to put a system whereby you evaluate them to ensure that they don't only match the standards required, but they also match what you expect of them. And that's why suppliers audits are very important. You need to also note that your supplier's problem quickly becomes yours if their food safety measure is a failure. There are environmental and monitoring absences which are not always done by certain stakeholders, such as checking possible listeria harborage points in their monitoring program. And the last of these hidden factors or hidden hazards is the human factor. As I earlier said, people who don't understand the why they are doing this, they only understand what. And when you understand the what, you will definitely cut corners anytime you're carrying out an activity. For example, if you are being told to clean a surface without being told why that surface should be clean, You would constantly clean the surface, and you would not ensure if the surface has been properly cleaned. You're going to do the cleaning, and in your head, you know, oh, this surface has been cleaned. But why am I cleaning this surface? If you know the why, it's going to prompt you to ensure that anytime you clean, you verify to ensure if this surface is actually clean. So what is the pathway to a safe food? The first one is data collection. And data collection involves the surveillance of foodborne illnesses, death, and economic cost as evaluated or as shown by Sinawo in his presentation. And there's this statement which runs by that quality has a price and non-quality or poor quality has a cost. It's important for you to pay the price, not to fall or not to find yourself in paying the cost of non-quality. You pay the price by implementing the right measures, or you pay the cost by the consequences that come from not implementing the price. And these consequences, as mentioned earlier, one of the possible consequences is a loss in your credibility. Let's take, for example, there is a foodborne illness disease that has occurred in the country, and this country is an exporter of that particular product. You having a foodborne illness of that product makes you lose credibility in the international market already, which is very risky. The second one is risk ranking. I think I will be explaining 1, 2, and 5 in the next slide. Risk ranking is all about you doing a proper risk assessment of your processes, your procedure, and all your activities. You do a risk assessment, you put in place certain solutions on how you're going to manage this risk, and you communicate this risk. The next one is setting priorities. You should be able to focus your resources on the highest impact and cost-effective interventions. As Giovanni earlier said, it is important to collaborate between each other. Nobody is an island within the food value chain. The government has to collaborate with food businesses. He has to collaborate with the consumers. They have to collaborate with health professionals. And same goes with the other stakeholders. So collaboration is very important in the food value chain to keep each and everyone updated, thereby reducing the risk of any possible foodborne illness. And the next one is impact. In as much as this has been evaluated, implemented, it is good to measure the impact of each action. Measuring the impact of each action gives one the possibility of knowing if this action is effective or which action should be ameliorated to have a better result. In the collection of data, there are 3 types of data which ought to be collected by each stakeholder. The first one is quantitative data. Here we speak about numbers. The second is semi-quantitative, which is a mixture of both qualitative data and quantitative data. And the last one is the qualitative data. And as I earlier mentioned, where could you get this data? You can get them from published scientific literature, from government data, from academias, from regulatory dossiers, as well as you can get them from standards and norms. And the FAO, the WHO generally work in collaboration with Codex to use the Codex Alimentarius, which provides basically 238 standards, 91 guidelines, and 58 codes of practice as the global evidence base for action. But it's also important to note there are other international frameworks such as the GFSI, the Global Food Safety Initiative, the HACCP, Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Points, and industry standards such as the BRCGS, the SQF, the ISF, and the Global GAP, which is Good Agricultural Practices. We have regulatory standards such as the FSMA, the EU, which is a food safety regulation mostly applied in European Union countries. And we have good manufacturing and good hygienic practices. So there is data available everywhere. There is data available everywhere for you to do or for you to take the best informed decision and put in place the best strategies to tackle any food safety issues within your organization, within your structure. For risk ranking, the best way to rank a risk is first doing a risk assessment, as I earlier said. The risk assessment has as objective estimating the risk of a particular virus, a particular bacteria, a particular pathogen, or a particular substance to human health. But after doing a risk assessment, it's important to carry out a risk management. And it's important to note that the risk assessment is best done with a risk assessment matrix, whereby you are able to identify if this risk is a low risk, if it's a high risk, if it is of medium priority, is it negligible? And from this, it's going to help you to better have a risk management plan. And the risk management plan here would ensure you to better measure and control the risk according to their priority levels. And the last of things is for you to communicate this risk, because it will be needless for you to assess, to manage, and you don't communicate them. Communication helps you to better have feedback on the various measures which have been put in place to tackle this risk. The risk assessment has 4 stages, which involves hazard identification, hazard characterization, exposure assessment, and risk characterization. How is impact measured? Impact is measured in impact is evaluated in the first one. We measure the performance, we analyze and understand,
100%
and we improve performance. So conclusively, it is very possible for foodborne diseases to be prevented.
You may proceed, please.
Your risk assessment matrix is going to help you do that. And as I earlier said, your food poisoning will impact the credibility of the economy. So conclusively, it is important to note that food safety is not a one-man show. It is a collaborative effort from all stakeholders within the food value chain. And safe food is the right for everyone and everywhere. I think on this, Samantha, thank you very much. Hoping I didn't take so much time for my presentation.
No, thank you so much, Mr. Paseli. That was a very insightful presentation, and thank you for your slides. I think what I picked mainly from your presentation that really stuck with me is that zero systems is not luck. It is a system. We can't uh, we can't slack on that. For us to have proper food robust systems, they will not come overnight, but it is an issue of us putting in place systems. At this point in time, I'm sure this is what we all have been waiting for. We want everyone to be ready as we get into our interactive session, which is going to be led by Farshad. We're going to get into our food safety quiz and audience engagement. Farshad, this is your time.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can hear you.
Okay. Thank you for very much for providing this opportunity to me to provide this presentation and the quiz. And thanks to Akanta that addressed a really interesting topic, especially about risk communication. Today, it's a good opportunity to address risk communication and touching risk perceptions. To cultivate food safety culture, it is important that we change the behavior, and it is not easy. And, based on the new generation, we have to think about how we can convey what it is supposed to be done. And we have to help the people to know that it is for everybody, for every department, every shift, for contribution for food safety. And making customized training like this slide just a presentation as an example, that every company, you can use your own scenario, and it is just an example that I have prepared to see it shouldn't be one way, it should be two way, and it should be analyzed, and the leader should know how the people they are thinking, why they answer wrong question. It means not only we have to consider the right one, we have to know why our staff have some misperception. That's why this part is so important when you are delivering such a quizzes. And it means for the competency, not only what to do is important, why to do is important as well. And this feedback is part of the food safety culture that is mentioned, especially in FSSC and GFSI. And for implementing behavior-based food safety, this kind of the training can really be helpful. And let's start with department of the production. Okay. Sorry. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can see the screen.
Okay. The first scenario is for production department. It is about the simultaneous challenges of the product label claim and shift handover on multi-purpose lines. Also new operator, so different changes happen. The scenario is about on a multi-purpose packaging line, shift A is packaging a product with a certified gluten-free claim using packaging film that has the gluten-free logo pre-printed on it. Due to a scheduled delay during the shift handover, the line is directly transferred to shift B without a complete stoppage and without executing a specialized allergen cleaning. The new operator of shift B mistakenly restart the line using the same gluten-free film from the previous shift, instead of changing the role to package the standard product and following the changeover policy. Meanwhile, the inkjet code prints the product date perfectly on the package without any error. And after 40 minutes, the line supervisor noticed the mistake. Now the question is this one. Which one is correct? There is no crisis since the product inside is safe and the inkjet code printed the code date. production can proceed normally. The next one is stop the line, replace the film roll with the correct one and continue production immediately without quarantining the already packaged goods. C, this is an acute crisis. The production process must be stopped immediately. All products manufactured over the 40 minutes must be physically quarantined, and the incident must be reported to the crisis management team as a potential risk. And the last one, continue production, but adjust the inkjet code to print a standard formulation disclaimer over the pre-printed gluten-free logo to cover up the package mistake. Now, it is appreciated to, you can put the answer, which answer is correct, you can put it as a comment. In the chat box, you can mention. See, more participation. No more feedback? Anybody believes that D is correct? Any suggestion for D? Yes, you're right. C is the correct one. So for such a scenario, it is good that we provide the feedback to staff, especially when the people from the production, they feel that a scenario is created for their group, they have a good feeling for engagement. And it is so important that instead of the involvement, we engage them and they feel for the contribution. We have to discuss why C is correct and why D is not correct. As you know, when it is printed by ink, it can be removed and it is not aligned with the labeling regulation. It is so important that we compare the result. Maybe we can ask them not to put their name. And we check the shift. We can ask them just they put the shift and the department. So we can analyze the data to see how is the differences. And finally, we have to celebrate and we have to give the feedback to them and recognize for top performance. Let's go to the next one for the other department, for warehouse and logistic department. This scenario is about cybersecurity challenges within our warehouse management system. As you know, nowadays, food defense became more important in the supply chain. In a baby milk powder manufacturing, company during a night shift, the automated warehouse monitoring system experienced a temporary network disruption, a software bug, or a suspected cyber attack. For a duration of 3 hours, the digital temperature recording system for the central cold storage is completely disconnected. However, when the network is restored, the data logger shows the temperature is back to normal. Following a standard layout routine, the warehouse keeper continues storing incoming raw material. Based on the latest food defense and cybersecurity mandated in GFSI standards, what is the correct answer for this scenario? Since the network is back online and the correct temperature is normal, no further action is required. B, note down the manual checklist. System was down, but the ambient air felt fine. C, all material present in the cold storage that were left unmonitored during these 3 hours must be physically quarantined. The warehouse keeper must immediately report the risk of data tampering or cold chain breach to the management representative or IT team to verify the physical backup history of the data loggers. Now tell me, what is the answer? What is your suggestion? C, C, C. Good. You know, in this scenario, I put baby food. Based on the FDA, you know, there is a methodology, we call it Carver shock. It is abbreviation of some word like criticality, vulnerability, accessibility. The shock of the baby food is high. So in food defense, it's a really vulnerable product, and it needs more caring. Even a deviation of the temperature, it is not easy to ignore. You are right. The C is correct. Sorry, I have problem with this one. Again, we have to provide the feedback and discuss about why C is correct and why baby food temperature is so important. And about the Carver shock, we can explain now better for the participant. The next scenario is for purchasing department. It is a purchasing challenge of the indirect rotational cleaning utensil and material approval. When we consider purchasing, most of the time we focus on raw material or packaging material, but we have to consider the other things as well, like equipment, like tools. And this scenario is about cleaning tools. To optimize cost, the procurement team bypassed their approved supplier for plastic scoop, measuring scoop, and cleaning brushes. Instead, they purchased a batch of highly durable, significant, cheaper brushes and scoop from a commercial industrial hardware market. These tools come in distinct colors, so for color coding it was okay, matching the factory zone segregation and are brand new. So they are new and the color coding is considered. Question is, why would an auditor issue a nonconformity to the procurement department the moment they spot these tools on the production floor? A, The auditor is being overly strict. Cleaning utensils are irrelevant to the procurement scope during an audit. B, the colors of the brushes didn't align properly with the factory zone mapping. C, the purchase of the scoops and brushes was executed without obtaining a declaration of compliance or a plastic migration test certificate, confirming they are approved for the food contact. These industrial grade tools may contain recycled plastic laden with toxic heavy metals. Now tell me the answer. C, C, good. Yes. Okay, very good. Let's see the answer. Yes, C is the answer. And we can discuss about this one. Sometimes some chemical, as it mentioned, it toxic, sometimes allergen. Sometimes about the hygienic design is not considered for these tools. And the other note that I can mention, most of the time during the audit, I find that they don't consider cleaning of the cleaning tools. So in your cleaning plan, cleaning tools should be considered as well. How often, how we clean it. If it is not hygienic design, so it is so risky for contamination, cross-contamination. Again, this scenario can be for the procurement because we are talking about the system. System means different elements are participating and they are interacting with each other to achieving a goal. So different department scenario can help the team to be involved, especially purchasing. And as you know, in FSSC, new versions are highlighting this area that we a specialized procedure is needed when you want to buy especially equipment. You have to define exactly what you want. So the expert from the production, from the R&D, other, they have to prepare and give a good criteria to the purchasing department because they are not, most of the time, they are not expert like production or QA or R&D. So based on that procedure and the requirement, they can go for the purchasing. The next one is for the maintenance. It is about a challenge of the leased or borrowed equipment on the production line. One of the primary machines on the process line, like filling unit, suffers a major mechanical breakdown that requires a week to repair. To avoid falling behind the schedule, the engineer team temporarily leases an identical unit from a partner factory and install it on the line. The machine appears completely clean and it is mechanically test runs successfully. Now let's see the questions. What is the mandatory protocol the engineering team must execute prior to starting commercial production with the leased machine. A, relubricate the machine with a standard industrial oil and immediately start the line. B, register the machine in the factory equipment matrix, conduct a comprehensive HACCP review risk assessment for the modified line, validate the CIP cleaning cycle for the specific unit, and verify the food grade status of the lubricant currently inside its gearbox. C, since the equipment is strictly temporary, used for less than a week, it doesn't require formal systematic documentation for the audit. Now it is appreciated to participate for this section. B, B. B, good. B. Very good. The B is the answer. And meanwhile, as you know, when we are installing something, we have to qualify the equipment. Although maybe it is completely similar with your equipment, again, CQV is needed, means commissioning, it is needed. And apart from the chemical, as it mentioned for the lubricant, when you are bringing an equipment to the line, you have to be so careful, especially if it is second-hand, for the pest control. Sometimes when you are bringing an equipment from somewhere to your production line, maybe it is not used for a while, and you know it has the risk of infestation because you are bringing cockroach or insect or even rodent to your production line. Now let's go to the QA/QC department. It is about managing supplier risk communication during a near-miss scenario. In the plant laboratory, rapid test kits yield a suspicious borderline result for the aflatoxin level in an incoming shipment of the raw pistachio. The QA team decide to send a duplicate sample to an accredited reference laboratory to define confirmation, which require a 3-day waiting period. Meanwhile, the manager of the pistachio supplier calls and states, if you are not going to approve and release the shipment right now, send it back so I can route it to another company. I have a cash buyer waiting. It is the scenario. And the question, reject and return the shipment immediately to relieve the factory of the liability, leaving the supplier to decide what to do with it. Release the raw material into production to maintain efficiency and implement control on the finished product if the reference lab result return positive later. Retain the shipment under strict physical quarantine in the WMS until the accredited lab results are finalized. Inform the supplier that due to potential public health risk, the batch is legally on hold and must remain under control quarantine pending final laboratory confirmation and risk assessment. Now, again, appreciated to give the right answer. C. How about A? Means reject and returning to the supplier. No A? Very good. Maybe because based on the food safety culture and social responsibility, we cannot give it to them as it is suspicious. And in some countries, the government don't let the person in charge to do such a behavior. Yeah, it is a food safety risk for other consumers. Okay, very good. The answer is C. As you know, it is a challenging one in reality because most of the time the QA, QC, they are under pressure for such scenario for returning because the supplier insists that I can sell it. As you can see in this picture on the right side, angry, and he said, okay, return it to me and I can do something for that. You are right, it should be on hold till get the result. Okay. It was just these 5 scenarios that I provided here, an example for a better risk communication with the team involving engaging different department, different shift. And as it is mentioned in the previous presentation, it is so important that we gather the data. Answering of this simple question, it's so important when you are analyzing and you will find how the people they are thinking. And when you find like a common non-conformity, common problem, it shows that somewhere as an organizational risk, not operational risk, there is a problem in awareness. So we have to find a way to increase the risk perception. Okay. It was my small quiz, and I hope that you enjoy of this participation, and I really appreciate that you participate in this presentation for the quiz. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Farshad, for the quiz. I'm hopeful that everyone benefited from it. I really did benefit. It's good to understand certain principles when they're brought into context, into real life context. And it was very insightful and educational. So, right now, we're going to get into what was meant to be Titi's presentation. We're going to get into the facts and figures. I will share the screen. Um, I'll share my screen with you so that you can also benefit from it. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, you can.
Okay. So we are still on the theme from burden to solutions, safe food everywhere. So we're going to quickly look into facts and figures surrounding this year's theme, right? And getting into that, there are a few things that I would like everyone to take note of, and I hope everyone has been writing down all those important points that have been coming through. First of all, many foodborne diseases can be prevented through well-established measures, right? We all know the 5 ways to save food. That is your cleaning, your washing, cook well, keep at safe temperatures, sanitize, etc. So many of these foodborne illnesses can be prevented. The second one, the relative contributions to the burden from the various foodborne diseases differ geographically. So if you read further into and you go further into the studies, even climate change affects food safety. The way the climate is changing, it differs per geography and per place in terms of how it's set up. There's no one size fits all in terms of the solutions. Remember, we are discussing the solutions to the burdens that we are facing due to food safety. Thirdly, some hazards transmitted in food can make people sick right away. So there's something I think it's Giovanni who mentioned it, that sometimes when you see someone already sick, that's not the first indicator. It has already happened. When you get your first sickness, visible sickness, it has already happened already. So this is just a reminder to say some hazards transmitted in food can make people sick right away. And some of them come over time. With studies, 20 years studies, you find that certain foods that were consumed in a certain period of time has led to certain cancers. We keep on discovering new cancers these days, and these just did not come right now. They started long back, but we were not probably quick to identify those causes. And we also talk of carcinogenic foods and ingredients that we put. These do not show up immediately; they show up after some time. So these are things that we need to bear in mind as we are coming up with solutions to this burden of food safety. The Codex Alimentarius includes 238 standards, 91 guidelines, 58 codes of practices, and over 10,000 quantitative standards covering maximum levels, contaminants in food and food additives, etc. So we also have the privilege of data and information. We are swimming in a lot of data and information to help us come up with the most accurate solutions. And we have the data, at our fingertips. We have things that have been scientifically proven, the maximum limits, the minimum limits, and everything to help us come up with these solutions. As I had mentioned before, climate change is a factor in evolving food safety risk. It can make it's easier for some harmful bacteria, viruses to grow and spread in soil and in water. And I remember as I was starting in my food safety journey, one of the things that really struck out to me was the issue of provenance. And because I used to be in a grain industry, cereals industry, the issue of provenance was very important to find out where the grain came from, the type of soil that you find in that area, where it comes from, the toxins associated, and etc. So all this information and data is meant to assist us in coming up with the most accurate solutions. Moving forward, we have our facts and figures, right? These are undisputable facts. When we're talking about facts and figures, these are things we cannot deny. And I think I'm the fourth, if not the third, to mention this. We have data documenting that 866 million annual illnesses, and that's nearly 1 in 9 or 1 in 10 globally, that are due to food-borne illnesses. 1.52 million preventable deaths each year. This is still a very big number for such a developed era that we are in, full of information, full of data to help prevent. 1.52 million deaths is still a big number that we all are tasked to with helping bring down that number. And 57.1 million disability adjusted life years lost stems directly from this latest peer review analysis. So all of these things are preventable. All of these things we can, as long as we work together, and we can bring the statistics down. We also have economic demographics. The global economic productivity has lost a metric of 310 billion annually due to unsafe food. These are big numbers. WHO vulnerable groups data says that children under 5 bear 29% of the total public health um, public health burden from foodborne threats, including chemical and heavy metal exposures that comes from the same WHO research. Again, the practical action points outlined for food businesses and operators and consumers are aligned with the strategic priorities of the WHO Global Strategy for Food Safety. I'll leave Titi to take over this presentation. Titi, are you now online?
For that. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. We'll be taking over the presentation from Samantha, who was holding fort for me. I'll just finish off on unpacking the foodborne threats and the facts and figures. Under the biological hazards, it is said that driven by bacteria, viruses, and parasites accounted for an overwhelming 860 million cases, resulting in primarily severe diarrheal disease. Then coming on to our chemical hazards, contaminants like your organic arsenic, your lead, and your silent, these are silent killers, and they account for a striking 73% of the overall foodborne deaths annually. Then there's a crisis of equity where major regional inequalities persist in Africa and Southeast Asia, together accounting for nearly 75% of illnesses and 60% of global deaths. What is the global burden and the key facts and figures? So here we've got a metric, the current global impact, the updated estimates, and the previous baselines from 2015. So in terms of annual illnesses, in 2015, we were at 600 million, where it's 1 in 10 people. But now we are currently at 866 million, where nearly 1 in 9 people. Clearly, you can see that there is an increase in the number of annual illnesses. Then moving on to annual fatalities. Currently, we're sitting on 1.52 million deaths, while in 2015, we were at 420 deaths, which is indicative that there's been an increase in terms of the global burden, in terms of annual fatalities. Then on economic cost, currently, we need 310 billion annually productivity loss and medical expenses loss globally, where in 2015, we were at 110 billion, which was limited to the low and middle income countries. Then in terms of disease variants, over 200 distinct diseases caused by contaminated foodborne, especially from acute and diarrheal to long-term cancers, while in 2015, where we had over 200 distinct diseases. Next slide, please. So our source for the data has been the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, which is GAIN. So in terms of vulnerable populations and demographics, where we're looking at children under 5, we are looking at carrying 29% of total health burden caused by unsafe food. This group suffered 143,000 preventable deaths globally in the updated tracking period. The vicious cycle is unsafe food creates a direct link between foodborne illnesses and malnutrition, disproportionately disproportionately impacting infants, pregnant women, the elderly, and the immunocompromised individuals. I'm sure most of us know these are our YOPs. Then, in terms of regional imbalances, the highest burden continues to be borne by low-income economies, particularly across Africa, where reliance on informal markets with limited cold chain infrastructure and weak regulatory control compounds this risk. And last but not least, the question now is, what can you do? What is the call to action that each person joining this meeting has? So this information is derived from the World Health Organization guideline. In terms of governments can ensure that food safety remains a continuous priority, integrating policies and programs into long-term planning, and rank risk and prioritize preventative actions where available, burden estimates and other data, directing resources to where they are needed the most. Then strengthening data collection through foodborne disease surveillance and food monitoring, using evidence to guide effective risk management measures and to track progress. And as a food business, you may be wondering, what can I do? As food business owners or food business entity, we can strengthen our employee training and education and ensure we are always up to date with the latest food safety practices. Thank you all for joining in today, because I'm sure all of us now have new data and new insights in terms of food safety. And ensuring a thorough use of food safety programs such as good practices, including the codes of practices. I think these were mentioned earlier. And where possible, use good hygiene practices, your GMP, good manufacturing practices, also hazard analysis critical control points, your HACCP, to identify and control hazards and manage food safety risks from production to consumption. Also, as food businesses, we need to implement evidence-based food safety programs using data which within the business to monitor food safety risk and track improvements. With data, we can have your baseline and the improvements and know what needs to be done in order to bridge the gaps. Health professionals, what can they do? Health professionals can strengthen detection by
Hello, Titi. Okay.
Hi, Samantha.
Yes, are you back online?
Yes, back. Sorry for that technical glitch. So health professionals can strengthen detection by improving diagnostics, clinical management, and control programs of foodborne diseases to better identify areas with higher burden. They can collaborate with multi-sectoral partners to promote integrate disease surveillance across sectors. And as consumers, what can we do? Because I'm sure everybody today is a consumer of one food or the other. As consumers, we can practice safe handling at home by following whose 5 keys to safer food, whose 5 keys to safer food, and staying informed and act on evidence by checking updates from reliable sources on food recalls, outbreaks, and food safe practices. And also, it is our responsibility as consumers to report and respond to risks by knowing how to alert authorities about unsafe food and taking the practical steps to prevent illness in the household. Thank you very much for, yeah, thank you very much. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Titi. We really appreciate your presentation. Looking at the chat box here, I'm not picking any questions. I would like to assume that we are all clear. I'll leave 30 seconds. If we have any questions from the audience, any question from the audience, any takers before we close off this wonderful session. Okay, I do not see any questions. Yes, there's a hand, Lucy, come through. You can unmute and speak, yes.
All right, my name is Lucy. I am from Kenya. Mine is not a question. I just want to comment and firstly to thank you for this forum. Thank you for the presenters. Mine is just to insist that as we think around food safety and how to go about safe food, let's not forget packaging. I come from Kenya and I'm in packaging background. Whereby we say if you cannot have safe food if you do not wrap it safely first. So let us ensure that as we create awareness to all stakeholders in terms of food, let us not forget the carriers of this food. Thank you very much, everyone, for this forum.
Thank you very much, Titi, for that gentle reminder. Yes, the whole food value chain matters in food safety, in ensuring food safety. I'm not seeing any question, so I will proceed to get the honors to say thank you very much to the Global Food Business Network for the forum. Thank you for the opportunity that you have granted all of us here to be part of, to learn from each other, and to share insights on how best we can handle food safety in our respective places. And I just want to leave this with everyone that food safety is everyone's business. And we are working towards ensuring that there should be safe food everywhere. I will hand over to our host to give our closing remarks and the vote of thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Samantha. Unfortunately, I'm not able to switch on my camera, but I just want to extend my profound gratitude to everybody who took out their time on a Sunday morning to join this webinar. And I believe us as food professionals, there's so much that we need to do to ensure we reduce this burden on food safety. It is my hope that we continue to reduce the numbers. Instead of having the numbers increase, we will have them drop to a point where it will be minimum and non-significant. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming, and I wish you the best in the coming year in every endeavor that you're doing to ensure that every food is safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Titi. And a profound thank you to all our speakers who took us through the presentations today. We gained so much. Your experience shared with us meant a lot really for us today. We are very grateful. And thank you for everyone who joined. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you and bye.